Oh, I did not know.
Okay. Well, we survived that. You're still here. You still decided to come in. Your hockey team's back in the playoffs.
Yes, so exciting.
Okay, so what have the last couple of months been like for you? Because on the outside, it's been an absolute joy to see the way that this team has put it together, the 18-game point streak that they were on, the way that they've been able to do it, the exciting brand of hockey that Andrew Burnett has brought in his first year, and Barry Trotz seeming to have galvanized this team in a couple of different ways and bringing it together and trying to bridge the gap between the Preds that were and the Preds that are right now. It has to be a pretty cool experience to see this thing grow over the course of 82.
Yeah, it's been really cool, and I think it's safe to say that, Trotzy should be considered for the GM of the year. I think Bruno should be considered for the Jack Adams, and don't even get me started on Yossi for Norris. It's been a really fun year. It was interesting. I think it was kind of a tale of two seasons, or two halves of a season, I guess you could say, because of course we all know about the U2 incident where they decided to call off the concert, which I guess, I don't know, maybe they owe U2 a thank you. They should write him a thank you.
Okay, relive the U2 story, because I have the gist, okay?
Yeah.
But for the
I can't
audience,
believe I didn't come back to U2 in this segment.
who may not be from, well, it's because you're lazy and you just throw whatever 3HL bumper that you have in there so you can come in here and chat with Lyndsay and dunk on me together. I understand.
What U2 song would you have wanted me to come back with? And
Doesn't
I'll do
matter
it
now.
I was going to say, but any of them, you know. Well,
Big U2 girl, Lyndsay Rowley.
Hits, yeah, the hits.
The hits.
The hits. Play the hits.
Play that entire album they dumped on everybody's iPhones a couple of years ago.
There you go. No, but so the Preds had a very rough, and that's an understatement, loss at home to Dallas, who now may end up being a first-round opponent, which would be crazy, very poetic. But they lost 9-2 on home ice. And the next day, from what I understand, the team was addressed and kind of said, from the coaching staff, from management, just, the trade deadline's around the corner. The next stretch of games, you're going to kind of decide what we're going to do. And after that game, the team went on 18-game point streak. So I think they made it very clear that they wanted to not only make it into the playoffs, but potentially make a run. This is still a team that is considered, was deemed a competitive rebuild. And now look at them. I think that, I would say, from what I judge on social media and following other reporters of other teams, nobody wants to see the Preds in the playoffs. Just from, just the pure grit and the effort that they have. And, you look at we have some veterans on the team who know how to win a cup. You got Ryan O'Reilly, Ryan McDonough, and then Yost has been to a cup final. Sissons has been to a cup final. So it's interesting. I talked to Jeremy Lauzon post-game last night about, even with the loss, how confident is this team going into the playoffs? And his eyes kind of lit up, and he was very confident. Speaking of which, Lauzon, for how young he is, he broke the NHL record for most hits in a season last night in Pittsburgh. Pretty impressive. So he's going to be huge in the playoffs as well. Sorry, I'm all over the place a little bit, but we got in late
Lyndsay
last
Rowley
night.
visit without being all over the place.
I know. We got in late last night from Pittsburgh, so I'm sorry.
Stay with me, girl.
But anyway, going back to your original question, it has been an exciting second half of season, and I think that momentum is still going, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
So it's between, basically, and depending on how these things play out later or throughout the course of the week, between Vancouver and Dallas. Dallas, as you mentioned, would have some degree of poetry to it, not just for the loss that kind of spurred this on, but the idea that Matt Duchene may be awaiting you on the other side.
Yeah, and don't forget Dallas beating us on home ice in the last 13 seconds, scoring 2 goals earlier in the season on home ice. So I think there's a lot of animosity between these two teams. It's always fun when they face off, but then when they had Duchene and Duchene started lighting it up, and you got Craig Smith too on that team. I think, oh buddy,
crazy legs.
Crazy legs. I don't know if you saw the start to the Devils Rangers game. When was that? A few weeks back, where they dropped the puck and just everybody dropped their gloves.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I kind of picture in Game 1 for Dallas Preds.
Well, I'm all for that. I am all for the violence of hockey. It's one of the things that makes the sport so exciting. But yeah, there's a lot of implications to this, and to be back in the postseason, like last year was such an anomaly for the run of consecutive years that the Preds had made the playoffs, to end that unceremoniously, and for the franchise to kind of be I don't know. It looked, at least from the outside lens, and I know it's always different from an external perspective, but I wasn't really sure how they were going to go about this and bringing in new management and Trotz taking the assuming David Poyle's role and him sliding into the background while still having a level of influence there. Obviously, it just didn't. The direction wasn't clear to me, but they seem to have taken this very seriously and turned it around at a faster pace than I'm imagining most Preds fans would imagine.
I think it faster than Trotzy thought too. I mean, he did an incredible job in the offseason as far as free agents go. I mean, Gus Nyquist is top 2 players in the league season-wise over the age of 34. 1 is Sidney Crosby. 2 is Gus Nyquist. I don't think he always gets enough credit being on that top line with O'Reilly and Forsberg. But O'Reilly, another free agent, signed and coming. I don't know how many he had last night, but coming into last night, 68 points, second most in his career. And then Luke Shen, who's been just a big body and been a great leader, too, in the locker room. He's one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had. I love him. But no, I think that everybody expected them to, that's why they called it a competitive rebuild, because they thought, all right, they're not going to get their butts kicked, but that nobody really expected them to make the playoffs and make a run like they did in the second half of the season. And now, I mean, like I said, I don't think there's many teams who want to see the Preds in the playoffs. So it's been really all the credit in the world to Barry Trotz and to Bruno. I think Bruno's system was difficult for the guys to grab onto, and that's why we saw them succeed so much in the second half of the season, and now they've got it down. And I think that fast pace is something that we haven't necessarily seen a lot of in systems in the past for the Preds, and man, they're doing a good job with it.
Our friend Lyndsay Rowley, Bally Sports, here with us. You can see her on the Preds pre-intermission, post-game coverage with Hal Gill, with Chris Mason, with the whole crew.
When a switch gets flipped like that and things are trending one way, like you said 2 months ago, we're like, playoffs probably not going to happen for this team in year one. And then the switch gets flipped, and it completely turns on its head, just the entire outlook of the season, the way they're playing. Is it just that, what you were saying, simply that Brunette's system kind of clicking at some point? Like, what factors do you throw into why they turned around the way they did without any major personnel changes?
I mean, that's a great question. I think that's the $1 million question. I go to the system because I know that, starting the year, it was more difficult for the guys to get in a rhythm with it. And I mean, Bruno says that when he was talking about when they picked up Zucker and Beauvillier, just talking about, it's going to take them some time to look how, and he's made references before, look how long it took our team to really understand and click with the system. So we got to give them some grace. So for me, that's because I don't know if there's, other than that, I don't know how much rhyme or reason it is. And as much as I joke, I don't think we can say, oh, it was the U2 concert that woke them up. Like, I don't think that turns a whole season around.
I mean, how much did
I love that Lyndsay just pointing a finger there. The U2 concert. We figured it out.
That's what it was. I mean, I think that of course lit a little bit of a fire under their butts, but I mean, I don't think that turns a whole season around. I think, it was.
Just let us do our dumb sports analysis, Lyndsay. It doesn't have to be serious and logical all the time.
I mean, I am curious how much of an effect that it's fun to talk about because of the timing of it and everything.
Yeah.
Like, how many Preds players are actually such diehard U2 fans that really made that big of a difference?
They probably don't even remember the concert.
I think they were excited too because it was the last one of the tour, and it was in the
Sphere, right?
Yes,
the Sphere.
In Vegas.
I couldn't think of it.
The big
thing. But no, I don't know. I mean, you have to ask them. I've never had the courage to really ask at this point in the season, like, how much that did. I'm afraid I might get some looks considering I'm on the plane with the team all the time. I don't know. I want someone else to ask that question.
Oh, we'll happily do it. We do dumb stuff with Forsberg every time he comes on the radio show.
Yeah, ask Phil next time he's in here. Maybe I would do it like off camera, but I don't know if they would like me repeating that if it wasn't.
We absolutely will do that. Speaking of Forsberg, he increased his record-setting goal total last night. They did lose 4-2 in the season finale against Pittsburgh. And that was a big win for the Penguins to be able to hang on there in the Eastern Conference. But for him to have 48 goals, now the single-season record for the franchise, you talked about Yossi for sure, and Forsberg. The way that the two of them have been working off of one another has been just so electric, and it has made, no matter how attached you are to this current generation of what the Preds look like, it's got some of that 2017 vibes that give you that excitement to what, okay, potentially this team can do with some old heads.
Yeah, Phil has been a force to be reckoned with, both him and Yost, but Phil in particular, if he just wants to take over a game, he gets something in him. I mean, he can, and without a doubt, he's so skilled. We've seen him creative goals all up and down every single season. I don't know. And he also, like, of all the seasons I've watched him, he just seems to be having more fun, like noticeable fun. Like, you know, he's just out there like playing pawn hockey, it kind of seems like. And I don't know if it's because he's about to be a new dad or whatever it is, you know, that dad strength. We did a graphic or looked it up, like every guy who's had a baby like the night of or the next day, it's like, I forget how many, but I think it's over 90% of them have like scored a goal. Phil should score a goal anyway, but it's funny. I was doing the hockey for her at the arena, and his wife Erin was one of the people on the panel asking questions. We had a bunch of the wives up there, and I felt kind of bad for her because the question answer got like flipped all the way. And I mean, she's such a. I'm joking when I say I feel bad for her. She's such a great personality, and no one was offensive or anything like that. But everybody was asking like, "Hey, if you have the baby, can Phil stay in the game if it's a game night?" Like, are you gonna make him leave? And she was like, she's so funny. She was like, team first. She was like, he can see the baby afterwards. She was like, she was so funny. She was fantastic. And but she's like, Phil and I have kind of had those conversations, but we haven't come to what we would like landed on what we're actually gonna do if he's in the playoffs still and it's a game night and I go into labor. So, but yeah, either way, Phil's gonna be a huge key in the playoffs for sure.
It's an element that keeps popping up. Scotty Scheffler over the weekend making it through the Masters en route to winning it for the second time, on the verge of having. Did we determine that it's his first child?
It would have been his first, so she didn't go into labor, and the baby's expected by the end of the month. So he won the Masters, and he gets to be there to see his baby born.
Excellent. Always Win-win. Fun to kind of play out those scenarios. Lyndsay Rowley hanging out with us in studio. So what is the vibe right now heading into the postseason? Obviously, the opponent yet to be determined, as we talked about, but how do they try and maintain this level of play? Because it's not like the special teams have faltered very often, but when they seem to struggle, that seems to be the cause.
Yeah, I think especially this back half of season, they've been in a rhythm, particularly the power play. End of regular season numbers are the second best power play in franchise history. So I think you got to give credit to Bruno, and our penalty kill is always been, I mean, when they're on, they're incredible. We've got some amazing killers, and you give credit to assistant coach Dan Highnote for that, for getting them going and putting up good numbers. It's also, no matter who you're going to face a strong power play. So ultimately, to stay out of the box, you don't have to worry about it. But that's not very realistic, especially in the playoffs. So I think you're right. Special teams could be a make or break point. But right now, I think both penalty kill and the power play are feeling extremely confident. So I don't necessarily, knock on wood, see that being a huge issue, especially to start. I mean, I don't know. There's just not like a cocky. There's a kind of a confidence, swagger kind of feel around this team right now. And to be honest with you, I'm confident no matter who they go up against. I'm not saying they're going to go out there and kick anybody's butt or sweep, but they're going to compete.
Better matchup to you? I know we talked about all the drama and kind of off the ice stuff that we could talk about with Dallas, but the better matchup, if it's Dallas or it's Vancouver. Haven't seen Vancouver since the turn of the new year.
Right.
Went 0-3 against them. It's a different Preds team, and Dallas potentially the number 1 seed. Better matchup to you. Who would you rather face?
I think Vancouver. I think they've kind of hit their peak. Not to say that they're going to be an easy matchup by any means. There is no easy matchup. They're incredibly skilled, incredibly fast. So it's going to be tough. But you also have to take into consideration, I mean, sometimes if the plane to the game hits wind, you're talking over a 4.5-hour flight. So, but that being said, the Predators starting on the road have time to get there. We'll probably get there a couple days in advance when we find out when we're playing and be able to settle in and get used to the time difference. Whereas when Vancouver comes back, they're probably, I would assume, have less than a day and they're not going to, I mean, yeah, sure, at home they're in their own beds, but in that way you could kind of argue that the Preds have a little bit of an advantage, being able to get out to Vancouver, get settled in. But for me, as far as on the ice, travel is going to be a pain in the butt, but I think that the Predators have a better chance against Vancouver. I say that, and we were talking to Bruno about it, and we were like, hey, what do you think? And he goes, I go either way. He was like, I've played in the playoffs, I've coached in the playoffs, and sometimes you get the matchup that you want. And he's like, and we got our butts kicked. He was like, and then you get the team, and you're like, man, this is going to be tough, and you end up winning it. He was like, so, I mean, all bets are off in the playoffs. It really is. But if you ask me who I'd rather face on the ice, I would go Vancouver.
How hard does that make your job, though, in particular with you guys as you're trying to set the table for these particular matchups? Because we've got, obviously, you can live stream the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, where potentially you could see something in Lyndsay Rowley's teeth, but not today. Where Emmett Jones says hockey has the hardest gauntlet to a championship than any other sport. The playoffs are tough to get through. So with that in mind, I mean, game previews are always less interesting than talking about the result in our industry. But when you're kind of taking that into consideration, how much do you have to weigh in? At the end of the day, yeah, it's super random in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and anything can happen. Yeah. Anybody can get got, no matter how good or bad you feel about the particular matchup.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I 99% sure this is true. At least in my 9 years, this is going to be the longest break we've had between regular season and playoffs, because we're done and there's still, the NHL goes till Thursday, I believe. And they're going to start, I think Sunday will be the first games. Everything's kind of speculation right now. It'll be Sunday, Monday. But I think a lot of it depends on availability of arenas and the national schedule and things that are way above my pay grade. But I think for us right now, we're kind of fortunate in the way that we've got so much time to prep for this. We know all of our storylines, and obviously we're super familiar with Dallas, and Vancouver's been in the spotlight all season. So as far as prep goes, the story kind of writes itself, honestly. But it's going to be interesting to see, first of all, where we're going and when we're going. And there's something to be said also for a team resting for that long. I know a lot of our guys would love to just get right at it right now, but some of them, bumps and bruises through the season. It is nice to be able to give some of those guys some rest, and they will be fully rested. That's for sure. Hopefully rested, not rusty. That's kind of the goal.
She's never rusty. She's Lyndsay Rowley. She's hanging out here with us in studio. You got another segment of this nonsense in you?
Also never rested.
Oh, yeah, never rested. I never rested, always rusty. That's Lyndsay Rowley.
I was not going to. Oh, no. Lucas informs me that you have things to do other than put up with our nonsense, so we're going to let you off the hook today, having put up with enough of our abuse. But I always appreciate you taking some time, because I know it's not like you don't look rested, because I would never say that to you, because I'm within striking distance, but it is an incredibly difficult...
I will come across this table like a spider monkey.
I know. That's why I'm not doing it. But
I'm jacked up on Mountain Dew.
Perpetually. I feel like you making time for us, I really appreciate it, because I don't know that I would do this for anybody if I had your schedule, girl.
Love being here. Love you guys.
Lyndsay Rowley with us. The Preds are off for the time being, but we'll find out very, very soon who their first round matchup will be. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Talk a little Tennessee transfer portal coming up next.